Hello, everyone. I think we're live right now. Thank you for joining us. If you are here, feel free to leave any questions or comments in the live chat. I decided to do a live stream for a couple of reasons. One, it's the end of the year, and I had some time off, so I figured we could do an end of the year live stream to celebrate moving into 2025. I also thought we could talk about reading goals and things like that, and also talk about channel memberships, which we're launching today. So, hello, Great Books Guy. Great to see you. I am uh, uh, I am excited about the channel memberships. What we're doing is we have the fan appreciation level where you can get like stickers and badges, and you can comment with fun emojis and things. And also at the end of my videos, starting next week, we will have like a list of the contributors. And then if you're part of the contributor level, you'll also get the weekly updates. I'm gonna start doing, because I normally record my videos like 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance. So if you want to see a book review right when I read it, that week, you have to wait a long time. So my plan is to record weekly updates. So you will see each you'll see each review, each my thoughts basically on it. Very similar to the type of weekly updates that Mike from Mike's Book Reviews does. So let's see. Bridget, hello, hi from Happy New Year's Eve. Yes, I'm very excited for the new year. Hymns are beautiful. Great to see you. It says, glad to be a member. Feel like a shareholder in a way. Yes, that is very much. I plan to be very transparent about this. This is a way for me to be able to do more book reviews, for me to be able to travel more, to get more interviews, things like that. And I'm really excited for it. Jeremy's also a channel member, says, hi, Jonathan. Happy New Year's Eve. Looking forward to a great 2025. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So happy that you are also a channel member. We have 4 so far. We have Mari, we have Hymns Are Beautiful, Jeremy, and then we have Darth Samael, as he wants to call it. So Lightspeed says, hey, Jonathan, happy New Year's Eve. Planning to become a channel member later this month. Oh, thank you, Lightspeed. Thank you so much, Jacob. Great to see you here. So for 2024, I was able to read a total of 134 books. I got in a book yesterday real quick. That was a very different type of book. If you follow my Twitter, you know what it was. It was a romantasy, which I don't usually read romantasy, but I was able to read that, and it was a lot of fun to read. And even though I think it was a really bad book, it was a lot of fun just getting to try a new experience. I'm planning to try to do 12 books a month. It's going to be so much in 2025. They're going to be shorter books than 2024 on average. I still have a few tomes to read, but most of them will be shorter books, so I should be able to read more, and I'm really excited about getting to do a bunch of genres. One of the things is there's going to be manga, which I'm really excited. Manga and comics are going to be regularly each month, and I bought a bunch, so I have enough for the whole year now. And then I, of course, am going to continue reading Star Wars, Star Trek, some fantasy, sci-fi, some thrillers. I have a few more YA middle grade-ish books to get to. We'll see how those go. And also I'll be moving in 2025, so I'll be in a new space, which I think is going to be a better space. So I'm very excited. And once I get into the new space, which should be May or June, is when I will do my next tour of the studio. Hymns Beautiful says, I enjoy your Facebook posts. Thank you so much. Rob Schwartz says, I've been a subscriber since the start, and I'm planning to become a channel member. Oh, thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. And again, for all my subscribers, there's no obligation or anything. I appreciate it if you can become a member. But if you can't, just being a subscriber and just watching the videos still helps, because it still gets word out there and helps. Commenting on videos actually really helps the algorithm. Hymns Are Beautiful says, are you getting your own place? No, not yet. I am moving from an apartment to a house, to a friend who has a house, who has enough space for me. And hopefully it will be cheaper rent, because rent is getting too darn high right now. There's an old meme for you, some of y'all. The Reformed Reader, great to see you, says, love the channel. What do you do for your regular 9 to 5? I am a teacher. I am a teacher and administrator at a Christian school. For 2 years, I taught fifth and sixth grade exclusively, and that was rough. It was a rough experience. However, I am now a ninth grade and 10th grade teacher, a um, uh, as well as being a administrator. So I do like records work, and I also do go to a lot of meetings with other administrators, and I work with dual enrollment work. So I work at a school full time, and it's a great job. I would categorize it as 7 to 3 instead of 9 to 5 because I come in at 7 and leave at 3 usually. But I love it, and I'm really happy to be a teacher. Where am I? Rob Swartz says, "You knew my question was coming, which was what will we get a library tour when you move?" Yes, because everybody asked for a library tour. And right now, you can see because of the way I've had to do things, I've had to turn some of the books on the shelves because I couldn't fit them all normally facing that way. So it looks really bad to do a library tour right now. However, when I have the new place, I'll be able to get more shelves, and I'll be able to spread everything out again. And I think I'll be able to do a proper tour then. So I'm very excited for that because the tours always get a lot of interest, and a lot of people, no matter what your reading style, people are always interested in those. Hymns Are Beautiful says, "Are you wanting to get into administration full time like a principal?" Who I don't having gone through so much, having to work with discipline as a fifth and sixth grade teacher, I don't know if I want to be a principal because you deal so much with that, and you also the parent stuff. I would rather work as an assistant academic dean or something like that, someone who's focused on curricula and stuff like that. If that administrative stuff's full time, sure, but uh, not not a principal, unfortunately. Rob says, "Is Jonathan reading Sun Ears in 2025? I hope to. I really want to because all my friends are reading it and all my friends are loving it. And I feel like I'm missing out. But I also have, A, the books are pretty long, and B, I have so many books on the TBR. I have well over 200. I think it's close to 300 books on my shelves that I still have to read. Now, I've read through like 800 books, so I'm doing pretty good getting through my shelves, but also I have like 300 left on my shelves to be read. I do actually, my computer is actually sitting on two of the Sun Eater books, as you mentioned that, because I had to elevate it so that it would, show my face instead of being the camera down here. But I do plan to read it eventually because everybody's loving it, or at least most everybody. I know a few people who are not. Bridget says, I'm getting Tears of the Nameless today. I hope it's good. I think it's pretty good. I think it not only ties in well with the Greater High Republic story, I think tells a good story with Amadeo and with Reef, but also I think as a YA book, I just think it's fun. It's fun. I still think the YA just as a whole just cannot hit the levels of the adult books, but this one was pretty good. Hymns Are Beautiful says, "How many books did you get for Christmas?" I got about 20 books or so, mostly nonfiction this year. Lately, I've been studying the history of Germany. So when you say get, or do you mean purchase or being gifted? Because there's two different answers. I actually didn't get gifted that many books. I got gifted 2 indie books that were the Stone and Sky books 1, 2, and 3, which I'd already read book 1. I got gifted the third Songs of Chaos indie book, which I had read the first and owned the second, but hadn't owned the third. So I got those 3. And then I was given an indie book that was just something that a friend of our family wrote. So I have that. And then some publishers sent me stuff. And then I purchased like 25, maybe 30 books. It's a lot. I purchased a lot of books as well over the Christmas era. So my book haul for December only goes through like December 15th because I went out of town after that. And so my January book haul will be huge because it'll have all the stuff from later part of Christmas time, plus actual Christmas gifts and stuff, which I'm very excited about. Great Books Guy says, "Would you ever consider being an editor at a publishing company? Amazed at how quickly you can rip through books." Yes, I would consider it. It would have to be the right type of publisher, right type of job. I am not a fan of having to go through and look for necessarily like doing proofreading or even or even like on a granular level, I think I work better as a reviewer where I can say, okay, broad strokes, your book is entertaining. I feel like it's slow in the beginning and needs to be sped up at the end. I think that this character isn't working and this character is. I think I can do the broad stuff, maybe stuff like maybe a beta reader would do, but it's not necessarily the type of thing where an editor has to be really detail oriented when it comes to providing the review. And I just don't know if I'm the right person. And also, if I'm an editor at a publisher and I'm given a book that is just not my style, it's hard for me to properly edit it down. So it would have to be the exact right system. I would love to do it. Just we'll just have to see what happens. Spectacular Webhead says, "Are you going to read any more Ted Dekker books?" None of the ones at my bookstore looked particularly entertaining. They were like books like 5 or 4 in a series or something, or they just weren't like there was this. I saw the book Skin, but I just wasn't particularly interested in it. I would like to read some of his Circle Adjacent series eventually one day. I'd also like to read some of his standalones. I'd like to read his book that he did with Frank Peretti because I've heard some interesting things about that process. But we'll see what happens with that. Rob says, "What's your thought on channel members getting to pick one book a month you have to read in a poll?" I thought about that. The problem is I schedule out my reading way longer than you guys would expect. So I've already scheduled like the first half of the year personally. I could do that. I could slot in an extra book. I will have to consider that. I might do that for the contribute level memberships or maybe just for all. I do plan to do polls, maybe to see like out of the books I read that week, which one gets priority read, which books or perhaps which books get spoiler reviews. That's also something I thought of, was doing some spoiler reviews for the channel memberships. Well, I'd have to readjust my TBR scheduling because that'd be a lot to change. Let's see where I'm at. Great Books Guy, is it possible to only read the adult books in the High Republic? Possible? Yes. I wouldn't recommend it because what they did with the High Republic is different phases. There's 3 phases. There's the first phase, and then it has the second phase, which goes back in time, and then you have the third phase, which takes place right after the first. And each phase is kind of structured a little bit differently. The first phase, there are some plot beats from the adult books that gets finished in the YA, and there's some characters from the middle grade books that become major characters in the YA books. So they kind of jump around, and the adult books are like the main story, the big picture stuff. But you might be like, this character, what's happening with them? Or I didn't remember that being finished. There are details and things that could happen with the YA and middle grade that you might miss. For phase 2, you have to read the YA stuff, in my opinion, to really get the full story. You don't have to read the middle grade of phase 2. For phase 3, yeah, you could do the adult, maybe just the YA as well. Adult and YA, even though I don't love the YA as much, I think the YA is still pretty important in phases 2 and 3. In phase 1, it's all over the place. So the answer is, it's hard to say. If your wallet only can afford some books, only read the adult books because they're the best. But if you have the money and the time to read all of them, I think that you will feel more rewarded having read all of them. But there are some stinkers in there. So let's see where I'm at. Hunter says, hello, Hunter says, finishing A New Dawn after reading John Jackson Miller's Kenobi. And man, he's such a fun author. Count Vidian too. He's something else. Yes, Count Vidian's such a great villain. And John Jackson Miller, one of my favorites. You're right. The word is fun. He writes fun books to read. Kenobi is a serious book, but it's got some fun moments. A New Dawn is a serious book with fun moments. Batman Resurrection is a fun book. The Living Force is a funny book. Not just a fun book, it's a funny book. And his Star Trek stuff is fun, despite having some serious stuff as well. So I agree, he's a fun author. Spectacular Webhead says, do you read any superhero comics? I do not. I've read some books, like I've read a Kevin J. Anderson book like 10 years ago that had a superhero in it. And I've read like the Brandon Sanderson superhero books, novels that he read, but comics. I do have some Star Wars comics to read, and I do have Secret Wars, the Jonathan Hickman 2016 Secret Wars to read because of the new movie coming out. And I thought, you know what? I saw it on sale. I'll get it. Other than that, I haven't read them yet, but maybe with my new manga comics reading for 2025, it'll pop up on the It'll pop up on the reading schedule. Bridget says, "What do you think of Skeleton Crew so far?" I think it's a fun series. I totally agree. It's such a fun series. I was so demoralized after Acolyte because of the reaction, because of the um, because of the reviews, because of just everything. And so I was really worried. I was just thinking, just make this a non-controversial series. Just be a fun series. And then Skeleton Crew was delightful. And I love the music in Skeleton Crew. I think the theme is so great. I think it's so layered. I think there's such great music and such great, action and fun. And like, for instance, I love all the references. Like there is a connection to Lovecraftian horror, which is just such a unique reference to make in Star Wars. But I thought it was great. And there's references to pirate stuff, and there's references to 80s movies. And I just think it's just delightful. It's not my favorite of the Disney era stuff. Like I prefer Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Andor, but it's fun. It's fun. Brady says, planning on getting to more fantasy this year. Which would you recommend reading first? Mistborn or Wheel of Time? Also got Silverblood promised for Christmas. Can't wait to read it. I love Silverblood so much. Mistborn is an easier, it's a trilogy initially. There's other books, but it's a trilogy initially. They're shorter than the Wheel of Time books. And also, I think there's more universal praise for Mistborn traditionally. So I would recommend doing that first. But Wheel of Time influenced Mistborn, but Wheel of Time is a huge endeavor. It is like Mistborn, you could just read the trilogy and be done. Wheel of Time, it is a 15 if you include the prequel series, and it's a big deal. So I'd start with Mistborn, dip your feet into fantasy, read Wheel of Time when you're more experienced in it. That's just my personal recommendation. Then again, the only fantasy I had read when I got into Wheel of Time was just the Shannara books. I'd read a lot of the Shannara, and then I jumped into Wheel of Time. So it can be an early starter series. Hymns are beautiful. Thank you so much for the super thanks. That's super nice of you. It says, please consider reading 1 Second After by William Fortson. I think someone else recommended William Fortson on another video. So interesting. That's gonna be interesting. But yes, I will write that down. Let me write it down right now. It is William Fortson, and it is 1 Second After. All right, I will keep that note. Matthew Griffiths, I think is how you say it, says, Happy New Year's, Jonathan. I wanted to give sincere thanks for your spotlight on tie-in fiction and lesser-known sci-fi fantasy. Best wishes. Thank you so much, Matthew. Yes, the lesser-known and lesser popular stuff doesn't always get the most views, but I appreciate talking about it, and I'm having a blast talking about the books I'm talking about. Great Book Sky says, did you ever share your news from your book conference earlier this year? Or did you decide to keep whatever that was private? Some of it I'm not allowed to say yet. Some of it has kind of come out a little bit, and then some of it is not coming out at all. So it depends on what is being referred to. Some of the Star Wars stuff I learned, I can't talk about. Some of the fantasy sci-fi stuff I learned has already come out, including the stuff about Howard Andrew Jones, that I learned that at the convention. And then also there was, what was the other things I learned? There was stuff about Robert Hampson's new book that I learned about, but there was also some stuff that I think I know what you're referencing that I just can't talk about yet. Sorry. Jeremy says, do you think when you finish the Grand Tour series, you might do a series overview and maybe a reading order? Yes, I do plan to do that. The problem is it's a huge series. It's like 26 books. And so it's going to be a long time before I finish the Grand Tour. Like I've been doing one book every like 2 or 3 months, somewhere around there. So it's like another 4 or 5 years before I finish Grand Tour. It might be sooner, but we'll see. We'll see if I can actually get to it faster than that. But it's a big series. So thankfully the books aren't terribly long. The final series, so the final trilogy is I think it's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And Pluto is being finished by Les Johnson, and that comes out in November. And so I'm planning to do September, October, November, that trilogy. Even though it's the last trilogy in it, I think I talked with Les, and he seems to think that you don't have to have read every single book to get it. So I'm going to read that trilogy. and then I'll go back and read some of the earlier ones. I do have Moon War and Moon Rise to read, as well as Venus, and I have Mercury. So I have some other books in the series. So 4 others on my shelves, plus those 3. So that's another 7. So that'll get me to 14. So I'll be like a little over halfway through the series by the end of this year, I think. Calamari says, I just started The Wheel of Time today. Oh, I hope you enjoy it. It's such a great ride. You know, there are some ups and downs. Don't let that hurt you, because the beginning is great, part of the middle is great, and the end is phenomenal. I love the end. Let's see. Jack, hello, Jack. I love that you comment on every video. I really appreciate you, Jack. I hope you enjoyed the library keepers, library lore keepers tag. I did that just for you. It was a fun tag to do. I had a blast with that. Bridget says, I'm having a little trouble getting through Thrawn alliances. It's a little hard to follow, jumping between Anakin Thrawn and Vader Thrawn. I think it's just because just the story itself just isn't that strong. I am a huge Timothy Zahn fan, and I agree. I believe it's his weakest Star Wars novel. It's not his weakest novel, because I've read some worse ones from him, but from his science fiction stuff. But for Star Wars, I think it's his weakest Star Wars novel, which is a shame, because I really like it. Now, my friend Caleb from Caleb Likes Books, it's his favorite of the new Thrawn trilogy, so he loves it. But I think it's Thrawn Alliance is a little weak. Thankfully, Thrawn Treason is so much better. Thrawn Treason feels much more like first Thrawn book, and it has some characters from the first Thrawn book that show back up. So definitely look back at that. Let's see where I'm at. AK 2003 says, do you like superhero comic book films? Absolutely. I go to most of the big MCU and DC stuff. Like, I'm planning to go to see Superman when it comes out. I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, although that was a rough movie to watch. So I go to them usually. Recently, just I've been trying to focus more on books personally, so I haven't been watching as many movies in theaters. For 2025, I'm most interested in the new Avatar movie and the new Mission Impossible movie. Those are my 2. Like, I am stoked for those. Great Books Guy says, I just finished reading the first 4 Stackful X-Wing novels. Fun, but didn't really enjoy them as much as I expected. I agree with you that Wedge's Gamble is my favorite. Interesting. I think that they're really great. I think that they, we were promised, X-Wing fighter books, and the first book is certainly that. Books 2 and 3 in particular is the X-Wing pilots aren't in the ships as much, and so there's more like political stuff going on, and I had a blast with that. I really liked it. But but I could see you not loving it. None of Stackpole stuff isn't for everyone. If you want lighthearted stuff, continue on with Alston, because Alston was a very silly. He has a lot of fun, just humorous dialogue and stuff. But the X-Wing books do tie into iJedi, and they do tie into the Hand of Thrawn duology, and eventually the New Jedi Order stuff, which I really enjoyed. Let's see where I'm at. Jack says, how would you rank Arc 1 of the Stormlight Archive? Very easy for me. At the top is Words of Radiance. Right below it is Way of Kings. I think they're a solid 1-2 punch. Words of Radiance number 1, Way of Kings number 2. Drop down a bit, and then you have Oathbringer and Wind and Truth, and like I go back and forth. Wind and Truth, sometimes I think it's better than Oathbringer, and then sometimes I think Oathbringer is better than Wind and Truth. So I kind of go back and forth on that. I think that both are memorable in good ways and bad. And then you have at the bottom, I would put Rhythm of War. I enjoyed Rhythm of War, but when I was reading it, but now I'm like, what happened in Rhythm of War? I don't really remember much of what happened in Rhythm of War, and I did a spoiler review on it. It just wasn't memorable. That's how I feel. Rob says, what would be one book on your upcoming TB, I think you mean TBR, that would surprise us? Let's see. A surprising book on the TBR? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading Babel by R.F. Kuang, which is her standalone. It's kind of fantasy, but it's also like literary fiction-ish. That might be a little surprising. Other than that, I'm reading a Western called God's Country by a self-published author named J.T. Ringo. So yeah, that one as well. Let's see. Book chat with Pat. Oh, Pat, great to see you. I always love your channel. Says, hi, Jonathan. Just want to stop by, say hello. Love your channel. Always learn so much. Wishing you a happy new year. You too, Pat. I love your channel as well. You are doing great work for book reviewers, and I love seeing all your tags. Yeah, I think you do a great job. Hymns Are Beautiful says, what are some nonfiction books you read recently or nonfiction you will soon be reading? I am in the middle of a book about the creation of the TV show Modern Family. It is talking about how the show was created and how they got the actors and the producers and the behind the scenes drama that came with the show. So I'm really enjoying that book. I'm reading that currently. I also recently read a little bit of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I didn't finish that one. I've just been reading it on and off a little bit. That one was kind of interesting. Those are my two recent nonfiction reads. Brady Powell says, what was that book you covered one time a lot like Avatar? It is Manta's Gift by Timothy Zahn. Manta's Gift, which is a tremendous science fiction novel. Tremendous. It is a tie between Manta's Gift and Mars for my favorite science fiction novel of all time. I think I have to give it to Manta's Gift, though, because it's such a good book. Such a good book. Let's see where I'm at. Great Books Guy says, I agree. I like the political stuff in the X-Wing books. Should I continue after reading the first 4 or jump over to iJedi or something else right away? It's up to you. You may need a break. If you're not loving it, you may just need a quick break. Go over to iJedi is the same author. So I would say what I'd recommend, if you haven't read the Jedi Academy trilogy, read that. Then read iJedi. Then read more X-Wing books. That's if you're staying in the Bantam era, that's what I recommend. I mean, if you're not doing the Bantam era, maybe go back to a prequel book. Maybe do Darth Maul Shadowhunter or Kenobi or something just as like a palate cleanser. If you're staying in Star Wars, that is something from a different era. But if you're staying in the Bantam era, I would recommend doing Jedi Academy, iJedi, and then continuing the X books. Hymns Are Beautiful says, as a conservative Christian, do you ever feel left out by BookTube? No. I don't think that anyone leaves me out of things, because I get offered to go on other channels sometimes, and I get offered to participate when they do big stuff. I do wonder if certain publishers haven't worked with me because of that. There's one in particular that has not worked with me yet that I'm very surprised has not. But they don't have to. I'm not, they're under no obligation to. And I have plenty of fun with my audience, and we're growing the audience plenty. It's been growing a lot this year and every year, which I appreciate all of y'all. So I'm not particularly. There are times where I'm like, I think I would have been part of something if I was less conservative, but I don't think that it really makes much of a difference. Let's see where I'm at. Lisa says, at the grocery store, but wanted to stop by and say hi. I'll watch the replay later. Thank you so much, Lisa. I always appreciate your comments here and on Twitter. You're very delightful. And I also like reading your book reviews that you do as well. Matthew says, I finished Manta's Gift recently and can vouch that it's fantastic. Yes. Jack Eternity says, have you ever read Perks of Being a Wallflower? It's a coming-of-age book. The movie's incredible. It's also one of the few examples where the author directing and writing the adaptation. Interesting. I have not read the book. Would that be categorized as YA or as an adult book? I think it takes place with all teenagers and stuff. But no, I haven't read that one. But if you recommend it, that's worth looking into. Book Chat with Pet says, thank you, Jonathan. Your words are kind for my heart. Thank you. Rob says, I personally didn't love Jordan Peterson's book. Thought it was a bit too long in each chapter to get to his role. I do agree. It is a little bit. He takes a long way to get there. And sometimes I'm like, okay, get to the point already. That's why I liked 48 Laws of Power. It was very succinct, maybe 10 pages long per rule. You were getting, directly to the ideas. And I think that the ideas were really practical. So I really like 48 Laws of Power. I think that's a good, if you're like, if you thought the 12 Rules for Life took too long getting to the point, 48 Laws of Power gets right to the point. Great Books Guy says, good call. I have not read the Jedi Academy trilogy. I have read the Jedi Academy trilogy, but not iJedi. Thanks. Okay. Bridget says, I'm a Christian too. Part of the reason I appreciate your channel. Thank you so much. Yes. I don't always talk about it because it's not always, it's not always the thing that's, at the forefront of the discussion, but I certainly try to include worldview when it is present. And sometimes I get in trouble for it. Let's see where I'm at. Book chat with Pat. The great thing about BookTube is that the community is very welcoming of all voices. Oh, thank you. I agree, Pat. Caleb from Caleb Likes Books. Great to see you, man. Love you, man. Says, hey, Jonathan, forgot this stream was happening. Taking a break from Wind and Truth to make lunch for myself and the kids. 100 pages in. I can't wait to talk with you. I am in a book group with Caleb and another guy named Alex. And Alex and I have finished the book. So Alex and I have been talking about it, but we can't talk about it with Caleb yet because he hasn't finished it. So I'm just like, I want to talk about it so bad. It was great talking with some of y'all in the spoiler video of Wind and Truth. Very rarely do I feel that I have to talk to someone else about this book because I just read something really interesting and I can't do it. Usually there's someone I can talk to, but it's very rare that I'm like, I need to talk with someone. Jack Eternity says, over under 50% Winds of Winter actually comes out one day. Actually comes out one day? Yes, it's over 50%. Here's why, is because it depends on how long, George Martin lives. But his estate, if he eventually is going to die one day because he's not that young, when that eventually happens, if Winds of Winter is not out, his estate's going to realize there is a huge moneymaker on the table, and they know he's written a lot for it, and so they will inevitably hire Daniel Abraham or Ty Frank, the two authors who make up James S.A. Corey. One of them is going to get it, and they're going to release Winds of Winter. It's just if I am a member of that state, I'm thinking about that. And if I'm the publisher, I'd also want that because it's a big moneymaker. And I actually believe that Winds of Winter not coming out has probably harmed Bantam books quite a bit because it's a Bantam book. Let's see. Drew says, I'm about to start Lord of Shattered Land based on your recommendation. I really hope you love it. It's such a great book. It's such a great it's such a great series. The third book I think is great, just not as great as the first two, but the first two are really something special. Jude Gross, hello Jude, says, could we ever get a comic self-tour? Do you mean like a tour of my comics shelves? I don't have that much comics. I have the ones you see right here, and then I have some of like a handful over there. So I don't have actually that much, but I'm trying to grow it right now. I'm trying to slowly add more comics and manga to my shelves. So maybe. Let's see. FNA says, Brandon Sanderson. Caleb says, glad to have you and Alex to talk about books with. No one else I talk to regularly is into this stuff. I know, it's so difficult. I have my brother-in-law who reads a lot of the same books as me or has read some of the same books as me, but we don't talk about books that much, only when we're together for like, special family events. Okay, you said shelf. Okay, Jude. I gotcha. I figured that's what you meant. Rob says, whoever gets to write Game of Thrones wins. I predict will be a big fun debate. Can see Sanderson trying to insert himself with the track record. No, there is zero chance Sanderson would do it. There is zero chance Sanderson will do it. Here's why. First of all, Sanderson has already completed a series. He's got that under his cap. He did The Wheel of Time. And the reason he did The Wheel of Time, people are missing that he was a huge fan of The Wheel of Time. That was his series that he was like, as a fan, reading and enjoying, which Robert Jordan was the one that influenced him a lot. So that's why he completed Wheel of Time. First, with Game of Thrones, stylistically, so different is Grimdark. Brandon is not grimdark, is incredibly vulgar. Brandon is not vulgar. It's incredibly crass with like sexuality. Brandon is not that way. And so it's just going to be a stylistic mistake for him to do. And then the other reason is that Sanderson has so much left with his Cosmere. I mean, he writes more than anyone, but he's still going to be pushing it to finish the Cosmere one day. And so every time he steps off to do another project like this is time away from the Cosmere. There is no way he has time to there's no way he has time to do Winds of Winter. And I don't think he would even get the offer. I don't even think, because it has to be offered. It's not like he can go up to the publisher and be like, hey, I want to do this. it really has to be the estate or George Martin himself, if he's still alive, that would have to do it, and they're just not going to do it. Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank. They are stylistically similar to George Martin. In fact, I think at least one or both of them were influenced by George Martin, like they worked for him. So that's one reason they do it. Second reason is I think the fan base would accept them, and three is they wouldn't be. It's not like they have a huge, like they have their Mercy of the Gods series, but they could stop and go do something else. They're not working on a Cosmere type thing. So that's why I feel that. Drew says, does being under a certain publisher stop someone for writing for Bantam? Are you referring to in like with the Star Wars Bantam books, or just in general? When you work for if you write for a publisher, generally, you can write for any publisher as long as you sign a deal with them. If I start a series A at Bantam Books, that's great. Let's say I come up with a series B, a different series idea. I could shop that around to Tor or to Orbit or to Bane Books or someone. And so I could send series B. But if series A starts at Bantam, Bantam would have to give up series A for it to go to another publisher. So that series stays with that publisher until they release the deal or if the rights run out. However, there are certain publishers that naturally don't hire other people. Orbit very much hires one type of writer. It's very different from the type of writer hired at Bane. You may see many authors who write Bane books also write Orbit books. Sometimes there's a few authors who will do Bane and Tor because they're closer in similarity. But even then, Bane and Tor have had a rivalry in the past, so even they don't have too much overlap. So it's more of a what your agent can get you in the business, and it's about if they can get you with that certain publisher, and if you already have the series there, they're not going to be picked up somewhere else. The rare time this happened was Sun Eater. The publisher Daw said, the series isn't, it's not selling as amazing. We're not continuing on after book 5. And so they released the contract for Rocchio, and then Bane picked it up. And then the series skyrocketed when Daniel Green and a few other reviewers talked about it. And then Daw was like, crap, we gave up something big. So Daw had to buy the rights from Bane, which Bane happily did because they got money. So Daw bought the rights from Bane, and now they're finishing books 6 and 7 there. So that's how, if a series could switch over. That's really into the business. Some of y'all may not care about the publishing business as much, but that's my thoughts on that. Anyway, Caleb says, Brandon's spoken before about how the books that eventually became Mistborn were his attempts at Grandark, and they were apparently terrible. Yep, he has talked about that, and he's also talked about why he wouldn't want to finish Game of Thrones as well. Jack says, have you ever watched the Avatar: The Last Airbender? I think you would enjoy the comics and novels also. Yes, I have wanted to re-watch it, but I just never have gotten into it, and I think I will be able to get into it this year because I'm getting into manga and comics and that other kind of art style and stuff. But I know that like Dave Filoni, who I love, got his start on Avatar: The Last Airbender. So certainly possible. Epiphany says, Brandon has a surprise. He's already finished Game of Thrones and King Killer Chronicles. Yeah, that's the next secret project. Is he's just finished those books for them. That'd be funny. I really liked one of my friends, Tim Akers, who writes fantasy books, of both self-published and for Bane. And Tim decided, he got frustrated that Rothfuss wasn't making any work, not just on in individual chapters, let alone on the whole novel. So he said, I'm going to write 4 novellas in the time that he's going to not write a novel. And you know what? He's done it. And I just find it really funny. Caleb says, loved Avatar as a kid. I need to reread the 4 books that came out recently. Yes, I need to read them as well because I'm a media tie-in fiction fan. Bridget says, you should reread The Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover for the movie's 20th anniversary this May. It adds a lot to the movie, and I'd love to see a review. I read it. I thought it was fine. I get why everyone else likes it. And by my standards, it would work well probably now because it adds so much, whereas some of the novelizations add like nothing. However, for every reread I do, I have to give up, a new book for Star Wars, and I'm trying to 100% it. So I don't know if that's going to happen. John Douglas, great to see you, John. I just recently read John's book, the Black Crown, and the review is coming out next week. And spoilers, I loved it. So definitely check that book out if you can. Good to see you, John. Caleb says he's been sick over the weekend, but it's almost better. On the bright side, he ordered some new books. Caleb showed me what books he got. I'm really excited for him to read them. Jeremy says, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. If JJM's Batman novels really take off and he doesn't write more Trek or Star Wars, would that disappoint you? He could take a tie-in genre to himself. I'll say there are some for Star Trek. He doesn't need to write anymore. I think he's done enough there. I don't think that there's as much for him to add in Star Trek. There are certainly things he could add in Star Trek, but with the direction publishing is going, and Jeremy probably knows what I'm referring to with this, I don't think that he's going to get opportunities to do what I want him to do, like big series. For Star Wars, I still think there are some potential series he could do with other co-authors, kind of like a Legacy of the Force or Fate of the Jedi. However, I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think that Living Force blew the sails off, but the Batman Resurrection was a big surprise, and currently, despite coming out the same time that the Mace Windu book came out, is outpacing the Mace Windu book on Goodreads and on, I think, Amazon reviews. So I think that he will continue to do those books, and I think that John is the type of tie-in author. He can go to whatever universe, and he'll do a great job. So I'd be sad, but it wouldn't be terrible as long as he keeps writing novels. That's really what it is. I don't want him to stop writing books. Oh, apparently it is storming now out here. Douglas says, hell of a jump around for Rakio. I usually like a series being under one roof in one place, but it's a good deal for him, then more power to him. Yes, he intended it all to be at Daw, but just they said no, and then it was amazing that the deal was signed with Bane right when the bunch of big YouTubers started getting into it, and it just blew up. And so if Daw had just held on to the series or renewed it right then, it would have made things so much easier. So if you have the hardcover from Bane of Disquiet Gods, it's a special edition because they're not doing paperbacks from Bane. They're doing them at Daw, and Daw is reprinting the hardcover. The second edition of the hardcover will be at Daw, and it'll be the smaller that is about an inch or so shorter than the Bane version to match the hardcovers of Daw's other ones. So this is like a special edition now, which I just find really funny. Jack says, what is a mythology from your world that is underutilized from our world? What's mythology from our world that is underutilized in fantasy? We don't see a ton of Roman mythology. I've seen a lot of Greek mythology in fantasy and in kids' books, certainly. I've seen Roman history and Roman archetypes used. I've not seen like the Roman gods used as much or the Roman myth used. I know that Ace Publishing is doing a twist on Roman mythology with Romulus and Remus and their mother, but I don't know how well it's going to work out because it's going from the mother's perspective, and I'm just not sure how much, history nerds, I don't think are going to be that into it. But I'd like to see more Roman stuff, because, guys are always thinking about the Roman Empire. They're also probably thinking about Roman mythology as well. Rick Justice, hello, Rick, says, hi, Jonathan. What are your rankings for the Star Trek TV series? This is probably going to get me in trouble. My favorite Star Trek TV series is the Voyager show. I love the Voyager show. That's my absolute favorite. After that, I would put probably Next Generation. I really liked Next Generation. After that, I didn't love watching DS9. I didn't love watching the original series. I love the books. I love the characters. I love the actors. Just those TV shows didn't work for me. I haven't watched Enterprise. I didn't particularly like. I watched the first season of Discovery. Didn't particularly like it. Now this is where it gets interesting. The first two seasons of Picard, Did not like it all. The third season of Picard is my favorite season of Star Trek, like my favorite single season, and is my favorite Star Trek story out there. So I like the third season of it, but is that enough to bump it up to the top, or is it at the bottom or in the middle? That's hard to do because it's just a single season. So uh, let's see where I'm at. Matthew says, sign me up for 10 more JJM Batman novels. If they're all as good as Resurrection was, absolutely. And I think that that series is going to be one of those that the word of mouth is so good that it may not have been a New York Times bestseller out of the gate, but it is going to carry on because people are going to really like it. By the way, I left out Strange New Worlds. I thought it was fine. I watched the first season. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, just felt it was fine. Hymns Are Beautiful says, did you ever read The Left Behind? Do you agree with the theology? man, you are going for the interesting questions. Hymns Are Beautiful. I've read the Left Behind kids books that they wrote. I read the middle grade, that are 100 pages long, that are for kids, that are focusing on teenagers in the series, that take place concurrently with the main novels. I've never read the main novels before. I would love to, but you guys know I have 300 books on my shelves and I'm always buying more. It's so hard to narrow down. Anyway, I really enjoy the series. The theology, Revelation theology, is just so difficult to get into. Most of the churches I've attended have been pre-trib, but some of my family is very post-trib and is or anyway, we'll see what happens. But Douglas says, how come Bane didn't fight harder to keep Rockio is my question. Could they not match Dawes off? No. That's John. They did not pay Chris to get the rights back. They paid Bane. Daw offered Bane money. Daw went to Bane and said, we want to buy back the rights from you as the publisher. And so Chris may have gotten some money in there as well, but I'm pretty sure Bane was the one that got money. And so Bane was very happy with the deal. I said that I think that they should have kept him because I think he gets younger readers in, but Bane had made a lot of money off of this deal. So that's why they're happy with it. Where am I at? Rick says, I love DS9 for the Ferengi. Yes, I do like that concept. I do like what the Ferengi did. Jack says, off topic, but are you still watching and enjoying Skeleton Crew? Missed the podcast. What a pleasant surprise this show has been. Yes, I am loving, really enjoying. It's not my favorite, but I'm enjoying Skeleton Crew. We did reviews of the first 2 episodes, and then we reviewed episode 3. I think we did 3, and then 4 and 5 came out during the Christmas festivities and stuff. And just I was not in my studio when it was happening, and episode 6 comes out tonight. Our plan is to record a review of 4, 5, and 6 tomorrow and release it tomorrow night. That's the plan. Whether or not we keep to the plan, I don't know, but that's the plan. So we are going to continue the podcast with that. But we did do 2 stuff. Anyway, where am I at? Brady says, I used to really like the Left Behind books, but man, they go a little wild with theology. Yeah, so a lot of the stuff's it's fiction, it's made up. The Left Behind stuff they're not holding directly to all of the theology and all of the all of the end time stuff, but they're telling fun stories. Peyton says, what is the next piece you would upgrade for your video setup? Bookshelf, camera, microphone. Well, for one, I do plan to buy more bookshelves in May when I move into my new spot. The second thing I plan to do is eventually, my phone, I record on my iPhone, and it is old. It is 5 years old. And I've heard that the new cameras are phenomenal, so much better. And so I do want to do that. My lighting, I have never been able to get my lighting perfect. I see booktubers and I see their lighting setups. And I'm like, how'd you do that? I'm considering buying a different set of lights because I bought some cheap lights and maybe some more expensive ones would help. But for camera wise, I do plan maybe in the next year or 2 to upgrade a new phone and then also to buy more bookshelves. And we'll see about lights. Where am I at? Jack says, Would you ever be open to having a PO box? Would love to send you books when I have some money. That's so nice of you. I don't know if you have a Twitter. You can private message me, or actually email is probably the best. If you email me, I can. I don't have a PO box, but I can work with you on stuff if you email me. So that's what I would say. Um, uh, Caleb says Skeleton Crew's been delightful. Not my favorite, but one of the higher up ones for me. Yes, Caleb. We all know what your favorite one is, and we all disagree with you. So. Hymns Are Beautiful says, as a conservative Lutheran, I'm supposed to be an amillennialist, but I'm leaning toward premillennialist. Russia seems determined to live out Gog and Magog. I'm leaning towards it. Ooh, that's a deep cut reference there. Yeah, it's the amillennialist, premillennialist. That's why, like, we had to make. So this is fun fact. Our family, we don't, like the stereotype is that when you get together for Thanksgiving, everybody argues politics. No, everybody's in lockstep on politics, but we're not allowed to talk about theology at the dinner table for when we get the whole family together, because we have amillennialists and premillennialists, postmillennialists, and it gets heated. Like our theology discussions are way more heated than anything political in the family, mostly because we're all kind of in lockstep on it. But I just find it really funny. Jeremy Camp says, I'm curious with literary treks. Does that interfere with your TBR, or do you just adapt what you read around it? Well, so what happened is from 2021 through 2023, I did book reviews for Roku Depot, and I did 2 a month. And so that's what my Star Trek reading was, and I got to pick the books, which was really nice. Then in January of 2024, I stopped writing for Roku Depot, and I started doing Literary Treks in January. And Literary Treks does 1 a month. And also with my reading tastes and schedule, I figured it was best time to move to it was best time for me to move to just 1 a month for it and to focus on other books instead. So I do read just what we discuss. Now I get, because I'm one of the co-hosts, I get to have a say in what we're reading. So the next series was one I asked for because I had it on my shelves and I was like, I don't have to go out and buy it. So the next series is one I asked for, but I have slowed down with my Star Trek reading because of it. Caleb says, I got the iPhone 16 Pro and the camera is phenomenal. It's hard for me to believe phone cameras are this good now. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Now, Caleb's next comment is, he says, the Acolyte is great and you are all wrong. No, you are wrong, Caleb. I liked the first 2 episodes, but not the rest of it. Marcos says, I'm enjoying your videos. What are your plans for New Year's? So there is a Bible study that I'm going to tonight. And then after that, I'm going to my co-host from the Star Wars podcast, Two Sons of Tatooine, and we are going to do. We're going to watch the new episode of Skeleton Crew, which is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, which I'm so excited about. I'm so excited about her directing. I love her directing. And then we'll probably just stay up there, and my friend and I will probably just play games, read books, stuff. Let's see where I'm at. Jack says, do you plan on doing BookTube full-time one day, or do you want to continue to teach as a hobby or your career and have this as a hobby? So what I would love to do is to be full-time book reviewer. I would love to just do the videos full-time. That all depends on if the channel continues to grow in subscribers, if I can grow the channel memberships, which, by the way, for those of you who haven't heard yet, channel memberships are open if you're interested in being one. And that depends on if I get sponsorships and things and stuff. I won't change the way I review. I won't change my my ideas or change my opinions on stuff, but I might adapt the business a little bit. But I would love to be full-time. My plan is for the next 5 years to be part-time, hobby-ish. It's getting closer now from a hobby to a part-time job with the revenue it's bringing in. So I'm moving in the direction of full-time, but I can't promise when it'll be full-time, and also if it'll get full. I'm at any time I could hit a ceiling and just never continue growing. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm prepared for that. So I'm going to keep my teaching job until I know for a fact that I can go full-time with book reviews and not, lose money. So that's my plan. Jack says, I didn't hate Acolyte, Caleb, but I certainly different love it. And Marco says, Caleb the Acolyte is dead fish awful. I warned you, Caleb. I warned you. Hymns Are Beautiful says, what's more likely, Martin finishes Game of Thrones before he dies, or Collins wrote the next Hunger Game book in first person? I think all of the books for the Hunger Games have been first person thus far. Um, uh, I think that the Hunger Games books will be continuing to be written in first person. I'm pretty much given up hope on Martin ever finishing it. I'm resigned that it's going to be Abraham or Frank that finishes it. Jack says, "What are your goals for? Will you do a goals for 2025 video?" Yes, I do have a plan for that. Filming that this week, and it'll come out next week or the week after. But that is my. Oh, Ballad was written in third person. I didn't remember that. I'm sure she'll do another first person eventually. I'm sure that eventually we're gonna get a sequel series about Katniss and Peeta and stuff like this. It's gonna happen because the money's there for that to happen. So I'm pretty sure. Anyway, sorry, got distracted on that. Jack, yes, I do plan to do that video. Rick Justice says, do your students know about your book reviews? Yes. My high school students, for the most part, don't care. The ones that do care are so nice when they come leave me some nice comments. However, my elementary students did find my book review videos and my live streams, and they were just flooding them with like skibbity and all those crazy stuff, and it was like so cringy, and eventually I had to tell them they had to stop because I was like, guys, I'm trying to be professional here and you're just ruining it. And eventually I have a few that still comment every once in a while, but they were like, okay, this is not fun anymore, which I want my students watching the videos, but I don't want them ruining them. Caleb says, LOL, I know my take on it isn't popular. Brady says, I like the cackle like Caleb. There are dozens of us. Yes, it's the meme. There are dozens of us. Jack says, I gotta go now, but this was a blast. Thank you for having amazing videos and content you put out. Happy New Year. Goodbye, sir. Oh, great to see you. Hello, Chaos. Great to see you. Speaking of students, book chat with Pat says, Jonathan, do any of your high school students read the books you review? Do they try to get you to talk about the books in class? Sometimes. It's very rare. So the students that I teach this year have not broached me about it. However, I was also the History Bowl coach this year. So during lunchtime on once a week, I went to History Bowl. And at History Bowl, I had students that are not students I teach, but students I coach. And those students have read the Star Trek books, and those students have read the Star Wars books and are fantasy readers. And so I did have some conversations with them. Not as much because we were very pressed for time, but it does happen. It mostly happens with my Star Wars stuff, but it happens with the other stuff as well. Him says, if we get raptured out of you, would you feel offended while in heaven if I approach you and we discuss books? No, I'd be so happy. I feel like if someone doesn't approach me, I will be offended in heaven because I want to talk about books. So no, that'd be great. And if we aren't raptured and if we're here during the tribulation, I don't know how much book reading will happen or if I'll know it. Anyway, Bridget says, I personally can't wait until Trials of the Jedi releases. I love Light of the Jedi and Charles Soule's writing. And I saw the editor of the book post this, and I'm so excited for it. The editor of the Star Wars books said that this is one of the longest ones. Like he said, it may not come out fully as the longest, but it's in contention for one of the longest. And I'm so excited for that because Charles Soule, Light of the Jedi was so special. And I think I think he's a great author, and I hope he does more Star Wars books. I'm not sure if he will. Justina Ireland just announced that her last two books, which come out on May 6th, which is ridiculous for them to come out on the same day, but her last two Star Wars books are coming out on May 6th, and that's the end of her Star Wars writing. And I think that's probably the right move. I think that is probably the right move. I think that her sales are at the point where they don't want to dip anymore, and I think that there's nothing much for her to add. So I think that's the right move for her. Peyton says, do you agree with the Rutini reading order? I don't know. I've seen some of their reviews, but I don't know the reading order. Really, for Star Wars books, because it's not a single, like the EU is a bit different because of what they plan stuff out. But even then, it's so broad that there's a lot of opportunities. So I don't hold to, for Star Wars, you gotta be right at it's like for Wheel of Time, it's a definitive reading order. For even the Cosmere, I would give a definitive reading order. For Star Wars, you want to do this, then do this. It's kind of open. It's kind of open. Hymns Brief says, which Christian figure out through history post first century would you want to meet in heaven? Which figure from Christian history? I'd love to meet Charlemagne, Charles the Great. I'd love to talk to Charlemagne. I'd also love to talk with, everyone wants to talk with Martin Luther, so he'd be one. Gutenberg, Johannes Gutenberg. I would love to talk with Gutenberg. Let's see where I'm at. You would want to meet Constantine. Oh man, Constantine would be so great. And Justinian, I'd love to talk with Theodora if she's there. Hunter says, saw the Star Wars book editors say there are some books expected to be released next year that haven't been announced. What do you think those are? Well, unfortunately, one of them got leaked. If it's the one, there's a Bad Batch book coming out. I think it's an adult book because it's coming out from Random House. So the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch book, as I think what they're referencing, it comes out in August. So I think that's what he's referencing because there's a lot coming out in 2025. For adult books, I mean, it's not a crazy amount, but for YA and middle grade, we have so many Star Wars books coming out. Let's see where I'm at. Peyton says, well, speaking of reading orders, what would be your Cosmere reading order? I'm currently reading through Wax and Rain after finishing Words of Radiance. Generally, I would stick as close to release order as possible, but I would say do Mistborn, Elantris, and Warbreaker first. Whatever order, Elantris, Mistborn, Warbreaker, Mistborn, whatever the order, those three, the two standalones in that trilogy first. Then do Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. Then do Wax and Wane, and then I do Oathbringer, Wither of War, and Wind and Truth. I think that's more pretty strong. You can move around at the end, if you want to do Wax and Wane after Oathbringer. You certainly, I think, need to do it before Wind and Truth. But yeah, the starting point should be Mistborn, Elantris, and Warbreaker. That is the starting point, and then you do Way of Kings. That's how I would view it. Let's see where I'm at. Hymns Beautiful says, what series did you like better, Divergent or Hunger Games? Oh, Divergent. I liked Divergent better. I liked the Hunger Games movies a lot, but the Divergent book series I liked better than the Hunger Games book series. It connected with me. The style of writing, I think, worked better for me, and the characters and stuff. And the twist. Oh, the twist at the end of Insurgent was so good. So good. Bridget says, The Mask of Fear might be good. I think so. We have the Mask of, for adult books, we have the Mask of Fear. Alexander Freed is batting 1 and 6 for me. Or is 1 and 5. So I hope that this one works well for him. I really loved his Rogue One novelization. So if it's like that, it'll be great. But if it's like his, Alphabet Squadron. So that one I think is going to be great. Trials of the Dreadeye is going to be great. I'm really hopeful for the Bad Batch book. I'm hoping that book is really good. And then Wayseeker, I anticipate it just being fine. Justina's not read. Some of her middle grade stuff's great, but her YA stuff hasn't impressed me as much. So I don't know if that book's going to be amazing. Hymns of Beautiful says, would your brother have volunteered for you in the Hunger Games? Nope, I don't think so. And I don't think I would have volunteered for him, probably. I don't think that we are that. I love him, but well, see, he's a lot older than me, so maybe he felt a little protective. But I don't think. I don't know if he would have. That's a weird thing. Caleb says, I hope they bring back more Legends authors like they did with J.J.M. and Stephen Barnes. Yeah, I think that Paul S. Kemp could and should come back. I don't know if they could get Stover back. I don't particularly love him, but I don't know if they would be able to get him back. Troy Denning, he's been gone he did so many books. I think that it's good that he's done. Like he's at that point where, he's earned. There's one author who can continue writing forever and not stop, and that's Tim. Tim's earned that spot that if he wants to, he should continue. But anyone else, there's some authors that it's like, I think their time's run its course. Stackpole, maybe they get him back for one book, but I think he's also pretty much, I think it's obvious he ran his course as a Legends author. Lucino, sadly, is not writing anymore, so we can't get him back. Let me think. Is there another author who could come back and be worth the return? Schreiber's been doing some novelizations for the Mando universe. Maybe they can get him back. I could see him coming back for stuff. I don't think we get Karen Travis back. I think there's too many burned bridges. Drew Karpyshyn, if they ever move their butts on the old Knights of the Old Republic remake, then I could see them bringing him back for some tie-in book for that. Otherwise, I don't know. Let's see where I'm at. Himsbio says, do you believe in the days of Noah, so it shall be? Is a reference to aliens coming back to the world right before the second coming. I know why you think it's aliens, and I don't think it's the aliens, but I've seen that theory. I don't agree with it, but I've seen that theory. Jeremy says, has there been any word on new Star Trek books besides the 2 Strange New Worlds books? Feels like they're winding down again. Yep. Have not heard anything. We talked with some of the authors about some stuff, but nothing's moved forward publicly. So we'll see if they ever do move forward with stuff. That is why, like, I've talked about wanting an audit of book sales for publishers, because like what's happening with Star Trek is ridiculous. And I feel like we as fans deserve an answer, and we've not gotten one. The authors have tried their best to provide an answer, but they haven't provided a good one. And so I feel like we need an audit of the sales and an audit of the meetings that are happening to know what's happening with the books, because this is getting ridiculous. Caleb says, if I were in the Hunger Games, I'd probably trip on something and then die immediately. Same. I would be awful at the Hunger Games. I would die instantly. Hunter says, my dream would be for James Luceno to come back, but I think he's a bit old. I don't think it's that he's old. I think that it's his health stuff. I think he's got some health stuff going on. Bridget says, I imagine Charles Soule and Kevin Scott writing some older public books. I'd love that. Yes. If there's any authors from the High Republic that I want to keep and continue on, it is Kevin Scott and Charles Soule. Keep them going. Daniel Jose Older, I think that he needs to have run his course with the books. I think that Justina Ireland's run her course. I think Tessa Gratton, maybe. I mean, she has her Acolyte book. We'll see how that goes. But Zoraida Cordova, I want her to do like sequel era stuff. Lydia Kang, I don't know why she just did the one book and done. I don't know what happened there. Something weird happened there. But yeah, Charles Soule and Kevin Scott, they need to continue on, I think. Let's see where we're at. Caleb from Caleb Likes Books says, I would love for Karpyshyn to come back. Yes, I know what the fandom. I know some people who stopped reading Star Wars books who would come back for Drew. I know they would come back with Drew. Oh, Lisa, glad you have your back. Why are you trying to get us all political? I'm not. I am dodging that one because I am not going there. However, I did realize we are at about an hour and 6 minutes in, so I am going to go ahead and cut this off. It was great talking with all of you about books. It was great, all of you who signed up for channel memberships. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for participating in this chat, and thank you to people like Hymns Are Beautiful who contributed for this. So thank you to all of you, and you guys have a wonderful week, and have a great 2025. See you next year.